I'm just going to quickly highlight what service learning is, just because I think it's less important to define it than to really talk about what its key components are. So this is from the national, sort of the national definition from the Service Trust Act. And the key components are that it involves active participation, that as I spoke about, that it actually meets the needs of the community, that it fosters civic responsibility, and that it's integrated into and enhances the academic curriculum. And I'll talk about that a little bit more when I show you a matrix that I created for my school to really integrate service into our curriculum. And then the reflection piece, which Ora was just talking about, which is hard to fit in but so key. Go ahead. Then we're talking about also, like, what is Jewish service learning? In order to really, what we're really talking about here is we're talking about really coming from a Jewish place and centering it around centering around Jewish values, texts, looking through a Jewish lens, and really talking about the Jewish imperative, our Jewish responsibility for social justice. This is just a picture, if you go back for a sec, of a student of mine. I led an American Jewish World Service trip. Actually, it was a year ago, to Nicaragua to do a project there. And this was one high schooler from Gann Academy was sorting out what was her thoughts in terms of what's her relationship to people in need, and what's most important to her in terms of who does she feel like she's most accountable to or needs to serve. So she was kind of wrestling with this issue of, is it just like concentric circles, and what about Jews and non-Jews, and all these really interesting discussions that we can have with our students when they're planning out what does really service mean to them and who am I obligated to. So what really service is really rooted in Jewish values, and there's so many Jewish values that we can really draw on to really teach through service learning that connects with our classroom and connects with our Jewish education. These are some of the values that I really pull from to bring into our curriculum at Brandeis. You can go ahead. And there's a lot of Jewish values, and it's really important that they connect with sort of developmentally appropriate. There's a big difference between, an 8th grader is going to want to focus on civic responsibility and leadership. A kindergartner is focusing more on chesed or kindness or kavod and respect or, sort of compassion for animals, that it needs to be developmentally appropriate too and connected to the curriculum. We used to talk about it as community service, and now we're talking about it as service learning. What's the difference? When we talk about service learning, we're really talking about education at the core, that it's not something you do after school, although doing stuff after school is also important. But when we really talk about service learning in day schools, we're talking about it's really a part of the education, and we want students to see that learning's not something that just happens in the classroom, but it's really connected to the learning that goes on in the community, and that those two spaces are connected through service projects, real world learning, and that it's really put into action. And this piece is also really important, that it's reciprocal. We're not teaching our kids to say, you need to go help those other people, but we're allowing them to build those reciprocal relationships that help us get beyond the pity issue, to really see the value in other people that they're serving and all that they can learn from other people too, through service. These are some student quotes as sort of what are students saying as they experience this. These are some students' definitions. Why serve? Because when you help someone else, you help yourself, which really speaks to the reciprocal piece. This is actually from the elective that Isaac and I teach, the service elective. You give a little bit of sunshine, a little bit of something good. And why serve? Because how else would anything else important be accomplished? And this is a really powerful piece that one of our 8th graders wrote from the elective. They wrote autobiographies about senior citizens, and when I asked her, what has this elective meant to you, she said that everyone has a story. Sometimes I'll just be standing on the street and a person will catch my eye and I'll wonder, what's their story? Who are they? Are they happy? And I realize how unique and complex each story is. I know so many people and so many stories, and each one is so detailed, but there are so many people I don't know, so many stories that exist without my knowledge. Yet if they exist without anyone's knowledge, they cease to exist. And so the person ceases to exist, for we are all just stories. And so for me, this project is about preserving a life. Wow. So, 8th grade. Yeah. Yeah.
This is a poem that was written by a 5th grade student of mine just a few weeks ago. When we did a project of Mishloach Manot to people who are hospitalized at Stanford Hospital. And we started with learning about the value of Bikor Cholim and looking at different texts, where it comes from. We then had the chaplain from Stanford, Bruce, come and talk to us about what he does as a chaplain with Jewish people who are hospitalized. We then did the actual activity like we did here, and then we spent the hour afterwards with both the general studies and the Jewish studies teachers doing some kind of reflection. Actually, the general studies teachers chose to do what's called a found poem, where we read them actually an article by Danny Siegel about what it means to do service. They picked out words, and then they put together a poem, each one of them separately. And this is one of the boys in 5th grade who would probably not have gotten to this if it wouldn't have been for this project. So we can make mitzvot happen if we are a feeling people, not a hearing people. If we just use our minds, imagination, and souls, we can help. If you set your mind to it, you can make it happen. I would like to raise the consciousness of those who are going to give. I would not like to hear what I need to do. I want to understand it. I feel uplifted in a site where someone helps. The power of thinking makes a difference. I think that this and the things that you've seen up until now show how incredibly important the reflection piece is of Jewish service learning. We can all do community service. It's about these pieces that really make the difference for the kids and really make them remember it for a long time.
One of the things I've done as service learning coordinator is I really believe that effective, sustainable service learning, meaning ongoing, really has to be linked to the curriculum and the institution, because otherwise it walks right out the door when the super impassioned teacher that really cares about recycling leaves, right? And so what I've done is create a matrix, and this is just for you can see as an example of how to start with Jewish values, make curriculum connections and projects. So I meet with teachers, I work with teachers. I shared this as a Google document so that it could be collaborative. So teachers can go on and they change things, they fix things, they tweak things, they add things, and they're all collaborators in the process of creating our matrix for service learning. So it's a work in progress. And then there's also school-wide initiatives and community partners after there. And there's things that we do that haven't quite made it on this matrix yet. I just realized that our art teacher actually does all this cool stuff with recycled materials that I need to add to the matrix that she's already been doing, but I just didn't acknowledge it in the matrix. And then you can see, like, we do some cool school-wide initiatives around greeting our school, and some other things, like I ran an inaugural poetry contest this year, and there's a lot of neat stuff going on, and this gives us sort of a living document that institutionalizes service learning, which is a really important part of it.